the grain grows on its own, and it's about cultivating that growth.
Cultivating that growth. That's how do we cultivate?
You don't make it grow.
Right. Right.
You don't like grow.
Bang the dirt and the grow. You know,
right.
It
grows on its own.
It
grows in its own way.
So Chris O'Neill, it is good to be with you. Thanks so much for coming out here. And Chris is a good friend of mine, and we studied the JP2 Institute. Before that, you were at Florida State University, correct? Yeah. Philosophy was your undergrad.
Yeah, I did philosophy and I did religious studies at a double major.
Oh, fantastic!
Which is not theology. It was a very secular university. The religion department and the philosophy department did not talk to each other.
But you had some great formation there. Were some of the brothers that came to the school.
Yeah. So there's when I was there was a Catholic. It was a Newman Center campus ministry, and there would be maybe a dozen or maybe 20 students that would come. There was a mass on Sunday evenings, and then afterwards we'd go to dinner, and there were like 8 or 10 or 12 of us, and then the Brotherhood of Hope they were out of Boston. They were invited to come in, and they started doing campus ministry there, and they brought in adoration and sacramental life, and I remember the brothers would have this way of doing ministry where it was one-on-one. Like they would just like, hey, why don't you come and have lunch with me, which was kind of cool. Then we'd have lunch, and then the brother wouldn't eat lunch. And like, oh, he's poor. Maybe I should buy him a burger. He's like, no. I realized later it was like his 5th lunch that day.
Right, because he's going to lunch all the time.
He's going to lunch all the time. Right. And it was just this very relational ministry, one-on-one. Instead of like coming in and installing a program, it was just like building the relationship. And they would say, how come you're not going to Mass every day? Like, okay, it's time. Like, you should be going to Mass every day. And then the daily Mass attendance of the students would grow. Yeah. And I remember being there when the students outnumbered, the old people that were going to Mass every Sunday.
Praise God.
And so right now, I think the last I heard, the Catholic Student Union was like the largest student organization on campus right now. They have like 150 students on a Wednesday night or 200 students on a Wednesday night every night.
It just goes to show you, like in evangelization, in ministry, relationship, and taking the time and being patient. You can't force it. You can't get a quick, awesome program and just think that one thing is going to do.
They had that in spades, and that's exactly. And then what they did was they taught the students how to do that for each other. Yeah. And so it was all about building relationships with each other and learning how to reach out to each other and be honest with each other and have transparent relationships and grow in your faith together. Yeah. And the thing just took off.
It's funny. We so overcomplicate some of these things sometimes, and it's just the basics of just being present to another person. Yeah. And how effective that is, but that requires time, and we're divided in so many areas.
Yeah, and just the brothers had to, and they taught us that too. You just have to have a lot of faith. You have to just have faith that this is what God has asked us to do, because it doesn't show results quick, it doesn't immediately.
It's interesting. I was listening to a podcast actually. Dr. Mario Sacasa, who just started his new podcast, Always Hope, right? And he had a guest on, and they were talking about the garden, Adam and Eve. And I've heard the story of Adam and Eve many times. Sure. But the first profession though of Adam, he's a gardener.
Yeah, he's a farmer.
He's a farmer, and there's so much. And I've got like this little bitty maybe 8x8 little garden. And I'm trying desperately to produce crops, and they are the most expensive vegetables that you can find on the market right now today. Yeah. But the point is that there's a lot of patience. You put the seed into the soil, right? You've got the soil, you got the spot, you got the water, and you just wait, and and then all of a sudden when it comes out, you're like, it's growing. It happened. That thing is no longer that thing anymore. Now it's something else.
He talks about that. Like the grain grows on its own. Right. You water and you till and all that, but it grows on its own. And it's about cultivating that growth. Yeah. But one of the things that's
cultivating that growth. That's a great word. Cultivating that growth. That's how do we cultivate?
You don't make it grow.
Right. Right. You don't bang the dirt and the grow.
Right. It grows on its own. It grows in its own way. And no matter how much you try, there's no cultivating that you could do to make a tomato plant grow a peach. Like,
Yeah,
it's going to grow a tomato no matter what you do,
Yeah.
or it's not going to grow a tomato, but
Right.
it's not going to grow anything else because it
Yeah.
is what it is. And you have to be attentive to that, right? And I also think what's really interesting too about that is that, you know, while Adam or man
Yeah.
does, you know, has to, they're cultivators, they're not manufacturers
Yeah.
in the first sense, you know, that
Yeah.
that idea. But then also, but what happens is there's something comes from the earth that wouldn't have come from
Yes.
the earth otherwise. Like,
Right.
without man there,
Right.
it would have just been a wild place, you
Yeah.
know. But the idea that there's the fruitfulness of the world becomes even more fruitful,
Yeah.
right? The plants are even more healthier.
Right.
They you know, and you get this kind of delightful diversity of things
Yeah.
that wouldn't have been there if it weren't for man's interaction. So man, you know, we oftentimes in our day we're worried about things like destruction of the environment and the ways in which we abuse creation. That's in our mind, but a lot of times we also overlook the, you know, the potential productivity, which is also very evident too. Like when you see a well-ordered garden and it's producing its fruits and it feeds a family or a village or a society, you know, like you go spend time on a well-run, well-ordered farm.
Yeah.
And you see that there's a family life at the heart of that often, and there's I had made friends with a dairy farm family up in La Ranja, and boy, it's every day they're out there milking those cows, and it doesn't matter if cows don't care if you have pneumonia or if you want a vacation day or whatever. There has to be, and there's just this dedication to caring for these animals, and they care about those animals.
Yeah.
Like, if they're not just using them as a factory.
No.
Like, if they don't love those animals, the animals get sick, and so there's a real love that's bearing fruit in like real production. It's a really beautiful thing to see, and we overlook that aspect of how the human work brings forth fruit. Like, it's a, you know, the Adam's first profession is a cultivator, but he's also a priest, where he takes what God has given and through his work offers something more.
Yeah.
Like there is no bread
Right.
in the world without man.
Yeah.
You know, there's no wine in the world without the labor of human work.
Right.
You know, there's just grapes, which are good, but not nearly as good as a wine, right?
Exactly.
You know, there's like a batter that comes from, and it's offered
Yeah.
to God and offered to the community, and so there's this abundant, rich fruitfulness that comes from human work, which is a beautiful thing to attend to.
Give it all away. Oh, oh.